Welcome to the Pigskins, and you know what? It's Super Bowl week. It's Super Bowl week, which means we're going to do things a little bit different this week. Because Super Bowl week only comes around once a year. It's special any year, but it's especially special this year with all that we've had to deal with the pandemic in 2020. There were questions about would the season even start? Would we even get to week 10, let alone the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl? But we are here, and so we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We are not going to be the Pigskins and Politics podcast this week. Since it is Super Bowl, we're going to have our own little Super Bowl party in honor of Super Bowl week. And on our chat last week, on the political episode about political parties, we are going to be the Pigskin Party Podcast today. So we're starting our own political party. Welcome to the Pigskin Party. My name is Brian McFadden. As I mentioned, this is the special Super Bowl week edition. We are going to be dropping a bonus special NFL episode on Friday in lieu of our normal politics episode. So you'll get two for the price of one this week for our NFL fans. Make sure to stay tuned for that. As has been the past few weeks, we are on YouTube going forward, so you can find us where you normally find your podcast and YouTube as well. So let's go ahead and get this Pigskin Party started. I'm going to bring in my backup quarterback. We'll call him the Josh McCown of the Pigskin Party Podcast, and that is Will Southern. Will, obviously you're stoked with Brady in the Super Bowl, so this is going to be a bit of a easy toss-up question, but how you feeling, man?
I thought today was my first Sunday that I had like an NFL breather until I realized that no, since our distinguished guest here hails from across the pond, I think it's like I think it's Super Bowl evening where you are. Like, isn't that the time difference?
It's a whole week ahead.
You guys like a week ahead?
I wish.
Corona's a thing of the past. You guys have exactly. It's good, man. It's I got my new addition to the office up here. My AB, just hanging out.
A noticeable improvement over the Tebow Gators jersey. Just gonna throw that out there.
Listen, Tebow is right there, and
he's like
going on my other
no,
wall.
I love
so
it.
Tebow's
like thrown over the side of the counter there, while AB is displayed prominently.
That is not just any Tebow jersey. That is a BCS National Championship Tebow jersey that I wore to that game. So, but anyway, good week, man. I'm excited to preview one of the best games this season. The best game this season we'll have ever seen.
Well, it's the Super Bowl. I should hope so.
And to talk about what an absolute disaster the Rams.
Yeah,
are.
we had some breaking news that popped yesterday, which is even on a Super Bowl special, we're going to have to talk about, and we will get to that. But I want to mention a couple things from what you said. One, as you said, it is actually Sunday. We normally record this on, well, it was Tuesday nights, and lately it's been Monday nights. But we are recording, for me, on the West Coast at 8:57 in the morning. And the reason we do that is because we have an extra special guest specifically for the Super Bowl preview show. We have Colum Cronin, who is a co-host of the Irish NFL show. That's right, straight from Ireland, across the pond, as Will mentioned. Colum, how are you feeling on Super Bowl week, man?
How's it going, lads? Great to have the opportunity to join the two of ye. Yeah, I mean, what a week. It should be a spectacular game, but alongside that, there is so much happening in the NFL. Well, I think if you ever think that you're going to get a break from talking from football, the league will throw a spanner in the works. It happens all the time. Yeah. And that Stafford news that I'm sure we're going to end up discussing, that happened at like middle of the night here, so we woke up to it, and which often happens. But a big week in store ahead as we move up to Super Bowl 55.
Oh, what a week!
I don't think the Rams. I think the Rams haven't woken up yet from that nightmare of a trade.
They're still a little jet lagged. We're going to get into that in just a second. Quick reminder. So we've been doing each week a new team deep dive. Since this is the Super Bowl week, we are going to skip it. We will continue that next week with a guest who is a huge fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. So he will either be exceedingly happy or pretty bummed because we'll be recording that next probably Tuesday after the Super Bowl. So let's go ahead and get into it because both of you have mentioned, obviously, the news of the day. We're going to go deep into previewing the Super Bowl itself. However, it was late for us last night, so for Colum, as you mentioned, Ireland was probably just 4 or 5 in the morning when this news broke. But the Detroit Lions finally found, I say finally, it didn't take that long, found a trade partner for Matthew Stafford. He's been traded to the Los Angeles Rams. The terms of the agreement are that the Rams will send 2 first-round picks, one in 2022 and one in 2023, so not this year, but the 2 consecutive years after this, plus a third-round pick from this year, along with quarterback Jared Goff himself. So these 2 quarterbacks are switching teams. It's the first time a trade has ever involved 2 number 1 overall picks in the NFL. So, Colum, I want to start with you to get your perspective from Ireland, the fact that you're, like you said, you're waking up to this. So what are your thoughts initially? We'll start with the capital that was given up, the actual terms itself, and then we'll talk about team fit and all that. What are your thoughts on the trade?
I'm almost surprised you're going me. I was really interested to hear why Will thinks it's such a disaster, because I woke up and I saw the number, right? You see the number and you think that's a lot that they have given up. But when I step back and I think about it, I don't think it's necessarily such a bad trade, because the Rams have an issue with giving contracts. That's, I think, their big problem. And so they were lumbered with Goff's contract, but they had clearly fallen out of love with Goff. There was no belief there. I don't think he would have started that playoff game if the Wolford had been available to them. So the belief in him was gone. So they had to do something. They couldn't cut him given the contract. So they had to. The least worst option was trading him. So to me, I think the trade is almost more about getting rid of Jared Goff's contract than it is about Matthew Stafford. This is like Brock Osweiler redux. A little bit better because Jared Goff, he can be a starting QB in the league for a team who probably isn't looking for the Super Bowl all the time. But for the Rams...
What does that even mean? He could be a starting QB for a team that doesn't want to compete.
Well, I mean,
I agree.
If there's a
100%.
franchise that could, I mean, the Lions kind of fit that.
I have friends who are long-suffering Lions fans, but and they are. Just a franchise, just disappointment after disappointment. If they're not done over by their players or their head coach or their GM, the league does them over with the Megatron catch that should have been a catch and wasn't. So, but what I mean is the Rams, they're in win now mode, right? They have a generational talent in Aaron Donald, and they have Ramsey. They want to make the most of that. And I'm a Broncos fan. I wish we had done something like this with Von Miller and Von Miller in his prime. But if you have such a generational
you
talent,
did get one Super Bowl
Donald
with him, so let's not forget that.
We did, but we did after that. What do we do? What do we do at QB? So to me, when you have a talent like Aaron Donald, you need to take advantage of that. QB is more important than ever in this league. And so they had to do something. They weren't ever going to be in the races for Deshaun Watson. So they rolled the dice on Stafford. It will be this time next year where we'll really know the winners and losers from this. For the Lions, yeah, they certainly get a haul, which is good. But for the Rams, it really comes down to can they be winners? If they're on the edge of the playoffs again, really, then you've got to start asking questions. But if they're in a Super Bowl this time next year, will they really care what they have given up? I mean, think this year they managed to make it work, even carrying the dead cap from Gurley and from Cooks. So they're able to do it. You don't want to keep doing it. I mean, it's a really interesting way they approach team building, because they seem to do everything other than utilize the draft. And I think there'll be a huge gap between their picks. I think because I think their next pick is maybe 2024.
Yeah, the next first round.
Or 20, yeah. So I think between 2014 and 2024, in that decade, from what I understand, I think it's 4 picks they'll have had in 10 years, which is an interesting.
Well, Goff
one.
is their last first round pick in 2016. That's the last first round pick they actually used and didn't trade away. That's insane. That's never been done before.
I mean, so here's the thing, right? Let's all agree, I hope, Jared Goff sucks. We can agree with that, right? Like he's just
I wouldn't
awful.
go. I wouldn't go that he
Okay.
sucks, but
All
he's certainly a mid-tier quarterback. Like he's not a superstar that's going to carry a team.
Sure. So basically, to your point about the trade, right? Like the Rams, this was basically a first-round pick to please take Jared Goff's contract off our hands, right? Like Matthew Stafford, in and of himself, great. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt. He's pretty good. The Rams. They still need to come together and gel. As good as Aaron Donald is, as good as Ramsey is, as good as Robert Woods has
Cooper
been.
Kupp when he's healthy, sure.
And Cup, Akers
Yeah.
coming on
I think
towards the end
that's
of the year. They really didn't use him in the beginning.
Well,
of
they
the
did,
year,
but he wasn't.
though.
He didn't. A lot of these rookie running backs, they take a few weeks to get started. Look at Jonathan Taylor in Indianapolis. But yeah, I think Akers showed promise at the end of the year. That's a good start for Stafford.
They need to. The Rams are okay. They need to really nail their other draft picks.
What other draft picks?
Lions,
They
though?
got rid of all the draft picks.
The
later rounds.
Your
Sure.
later round picks. But the Lions, man, good God, you better hope and pray that they get these picks right. You know what I mean? And you probably need to use one of them on an actual quarterback because Jared Goff is straight doo doo. But I just don't understand if you're like the Lions, why you would take him on. I guess what they're saying is that they have to have somebody. You know what I mean? They have to have somebody to hike.
Could Goff be their bridge quarterback? Could this be Dan Campbell's plan? Is to
how many years is on his contract? Left?
2 more?
He has two where you can't get out of it, and that's I think the big issue. And it's an interesting one because I don't rate Jared Goff very highly. I think mid tier is being kind to him, Brian, but I do think you can get by as you look to either bring somebody in and draft it and sit behind them for a year and then see how it goes the following year. But you have to have somebody. There certainly are people out there who believe that he the number one pick. This is the thing about Goff. Goff was the number one pick. That he still has the potential if you can rebuild his confidence. I don't know if he can do that, but
You're not going to rebuild his talent.
I don't see what I agree with. I don't see what Jared Goff brings you. He doesn't bring you anything on the ground. He doesn't have massive arm strength. He doesn't have a super quick release. Everything, all those things that you look for in a QB, the leadership, the ability to put the game on his back and bring you back into it. How much faith would you ever have if you're down by 6, you've got the ball back on a kickoff, your own 25, and there's 1 minute 53 on the clock? How much faith would you have in Jared Goff?
And unless Detroit fixes that defense quickly, you're going to find yourself in that situation a lot, or down by more than that, right? Because he's used to having a top 5, if not, this year they were the number 1 defense in the NFL, so you're used to not having to come back from these huge deficits. And here you are.
If I was Kenny Galladay, I'd want to get in my car.
He's a free agent.
Drive to another city.
Galladay's a free agent. He's not locked up. That defense has a lot of holes. Yeah, they've got extra draft picks now, but most of them are next year. So this year is probably guaranteed to be a pretty rough year for the Lions. He has benefited a lot from McVay as a play caller. If you think about his rookie year under Jeff Fisher and how bad he was, and his rookie, and players get better. Sure, we look at Josh Allen. But the leap he made working in McVay's offense, kind of like you see Jimmy Garoppolo and the success he has in a Kyle Shanahan offense, going to an unproven Detroit, it's not a situation that's going to allow him to thrive. He needs all the pieces around him to be great. He's going to be having to come back from a lot of deficits. If Goff is their choice as the future quarterback, I'm going to agree with you guys. I don't think it's a good choice. I'd like to think that he's a bridge quarterback. They're going to draft someone, maybe somebody they have to develop for a few years. Well,
see, here's the thing is so I heard for Stafford there were a lot of teams in the mix for a first round pick, right? That was true, right? So what could you realistically get?
I also heard,
Stafford?
real quick, that the Rams were not the best offer. That the Washington football team actually had a better offer, but something to do with the contract and the way that the Lions structured the deal, they were the ones who were the choice. Plus, Stafford wanted to go to L.A., but Washington, and I don't know, I haven't seen the reports of what exactly they offered, but apparently Washington's offer was better.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been excited about that. I mean, you know, but here's the thing. I think here's the moral of the story. I absolutely abhor teams gambling multiple years on these average at best quarterbacks coming out of college, right? The only time that you should be doing this kind of stuff, like what the Rams did, honestly, to me, is, and you know, you're right, Colum, about win now mode. Certainly for the Rams, that is true. You know, with Ramsey and Donald and their cap situation being what it was. But like Wentz, right? Goff, Griffin, right? RG3, like it rarely works. Like the only time I really think you should be doing this is if you have somebody like Andrew Luck coming out of
Trevor
college,
Lawrence,
right? Or Trevor Lawrence, even though I'm not as big on Lawrence, but like then okay, right? When you have a proven winner, or we're gonna talk about him at some point, Deshaun Watson, right? Not so much, but you know with Watson you're gonna get a winner, right? He showed it in the biggest stage in college football, year in and year out, like he will succeed, right? These other quarterbacks like Trubisky, right? Like how much did they give up? He started 13 games, bro. Like,
they passed on Watson, first of all. They traded up to the second pick to get him. Yeah.
I know. It's just these teams overthink this stuff. You know what I mean? They overanalyze it. They overthink it. And that's how you end up with people like Goff, you know, having this, like, horrible contract to weigh you down. But good for the Rams. You know, looking at the Rams, do they have everything there they need to succeed? Maybe. You know, I think it really depends on what they do with their the rest of free agency and the rest of the later rounds. I mean, Kupp got hurt a couple times. You know, Woods is pretty okay on the outside. I mean, other than that, they've got a running game.
Well, Tyler Higbee, I mean, he wasn't as prominent this year, but Higbee was good at the end of last year. If Akers can continue it,
Van Jefferson
showed some promise at the end of the year. If Akers keeps doing what he did at the end of the season and in the playoffs, you've already got an amazing defense. I actually think that this makes the Rams very dangerous. Stafford is not a top 5 quarterback, but we can all clearly agree he's an upgrade over Goff. So if that's the one thing you're missing, if McVay, and this was a lot of the rumors where McVay stopped trusting Goff, he was coaching around Goff, and as brilliant of an offensive mind as McVay is, when you're coaching around your quarterback, that's a bad sign. I actually also saw reports that they had actually tried to trade him last offseason and couldn't find a suitor. Obviously, that contract was probably a big hindrance there. So he has basically been off Goff probably since that Super Bowl against New England. I'm not going to talk anymore about that. Well, we're just going to briefly mention that.
How did that get?
I don't know. It was boring. 13-3. That's all I remember.
It was boring. It was extremely boring. I do.
Yeah.
Remember
So I just think that the Rams have made an upgrade. They probably need to bolster that offensive line. I'm sure Whitworth is going to retire for good this time. But other than that, the defense, they're keeping pieces in place. When you have Ramsey and you have Aaron Donald, that alone can make your defense elite. You've got Kupp, if he stays healthy. Robert Woods has proven to be a very solid, probably top 15-ish wide receiver as far as reliability. Higbee has shown talent. Akers, they've got the pieces. If Stafford can get in there and do things, then I could see the Rams making a run. I want to speculate on one more thing before we move on and talk about the Super Bowl. We talked about it briefly, Colum, but do you think they should, this year, draft one of these top quarterbacks? There's a lot of mocks that have 5 different quarterbacks going in the first round. So I believe we said the Lions are picking at number 7. So they will have a shot at one of these quarterbacks. If they're using Goff as a bridge quarterback, do you think that that's what they should do, is use that first pick with a rookie?
Not this year, because I think that they're lumbered with his contract for at least 2 years. I think you live with it this year, right? You see what you have, and then you probably next year, I think you'll still be picking pretty high.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to end up needing to sell the farm if you have to move up to take one of those top QBs. I think you live with Goff this year, and I think you do your homework right on the QBs next year. I think what's always really interesting, and when we talk about making the transition from college to the pro game, because there are so many intangibles that fans and that teams can't know, because these guys go from being the best right in any room they've been in to not being the best, and not necessarily always being the leader, and having to deal with difficult characters and guys being around all the time. Whereas when you're playing in college, you might play against somebody a year, 2 years, then they're gone. Well, when you come into the league, you're having to play against that person or work with that person season after season after season. So it's always really interesting. And I think what can happen at times, teams as well get so caught up in the looking at an example. So Josh Allen, right? Everyone is looking at Josh Allen going, well, like if we have a QB that doesn't do so well, maybe year 1, year 2, like they could still develop. Josh Allen is a unicorn. Most QBs do not suddenly become brilliant in year 3. And the thing, I think people are going to get carried away on that in the same way that people looked at the Broncos winning that Super Bowl in Peyton Manning's last year and decided, yeah, you can probably get away with like average QB play. Whereas like, yeah, Peyton was bad that year, but Peyton was still a leader. And that Broncos defense was absolutely worldly. So that leadership element, I think people lost sight of that, and they just fixated on, yeah, average QB play, you can get by. And Goff probably, and what McVay did in getting them there, and I know you don't want to touch on it, but Bill Belichick ruins young QBs.
Oh, no, I know.
If you want, you better hope that your team does not play the Patriots, or that you have a guy who, and I think this is where teams need to look at the resilience and the bounce back ability, as I would say, because Sam Darnold has never recovered from seeing ghosts and never will recover from seeing ghosts wherever he goes, and Goff will never get over that Super Bowl. And it has to be, for McVay, that has to be incredibly frustrating, right? Because you had Wade Phillips, who comes up once again with a brilliant Super Bowl plan, who shuts down like Brady in a way that hadn't been done in a Super Bowl before.
By the way, quick shout out. I know your show had Wade on, so
we did. We were very fortunate to talk to Wade, and he was great. He talked all about that and what you had to do. And hey, he absolutely says, like, shutting Brady down requires you to be at the pinnacle. But they were brilliant that night. But then your offense gives you nothing. I mean, I can see why McVay decided then and there, like, we will never get over the hump with this guy. And so I imagine from there on, it was a matter of trying to find a suitor. And right now, this works for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, New England secondary, like, for like a couple years there was just brutal. You know what I mean? So, I mean, there is that. You can't really... here's the other thing, right? Like, so you got a 2022, 2023, and a third-round pick this year with Goff, right? How much of that, the Lions, like you said, picked 7th, right? You basically paid for those draft picks. If they wanted to, right, you could probably send half that load plus this year's pick at number 7. Like, if you sent number 7 and a number 1 pick in 22 and the third round pick or something, you could move up to get somebody this year. If you look out at the draft class to say, like, next year, maybe not.
That's going to destroy whatever confidence is left of Jared Goff. If he joins a new team and they trade up for a quarterback.
Who cares, bro? Who cares? Like, they're already going to be awful. Like, you said it already. Like, just Wentz. I mean, what about Wentz? Dude,
yeah.
Like, Wentz is benched and on the team.
Actually, I wanted to mention that real quick, and this is something that we'll dive in a future episode. But, Colum, you brought up a great point about other teams seeing the Josh Allen example and just being convinced that they can duplicate it. Is that possibly the reason that owner Jeffrey Lurie and GM Howie Roseman were insistent on any head coach that came into Philadelphia working with Wentz. Like Wentz is just one.
Wentz can't run.
He can't
bro.
run, and his confidence is shaken. His accuracy has gone. But like I said, I don't want to dive into that. But we'll talk about that in a future episode. But I love that point, so I want to expand on that down the road when we break down the Eagles in the offseason. Is that why ownership and Howie Roseman wanted to keep Wentz, because they're convinced that he's just one good coach away from Josh Allen?
I mean, there's also so the Lions aren't even in really like rebuild mode, right? Like, because if you're in rebuild mode, just send everybody who's good away.
Like the Dolphins.
Like, not that there's many people left. Like, if you ever watched Cobra Kai and he like wants to scrounge up money and he goes into the pawn shop with like his Atari and like a broken answering machine. That's
Cobra Kai has
are
now
playing
been
with at this
mentioned on
point.
2 consecutive episodes. Congrats, Will. Way to get that in there.
The Lions don't have much capital left, man. But what I'm saying is, you could take this, you could go grab Fields. I mean, some of this is a business decision. Like, do you think people are going to really, like, next year show up at Lion games, like, excited and, like, buy Goff jerseys? Like, no. But if you got Fields or you got
But they have Zach Wilson. They have massive holes on that defense. So I'm curious to see which direction they're going to go, whether they're going to spend that draft capital on the defense and either maybe take a flyer on a rookie later, or I don't know. There's lots of intrigue there.
Micah Parsons, probably.
Micah Parsons.
I would say I really think that they should take stock, do a little bit of what Flores did. I mean, at the Dolphins, you have a look at what you have. If you have other pieces that aren't working for you, maybe you move them and you add to the arsenal that you have for the following year. I do think that Patricia's reign there was so disastrous and players were so unhappy that you will have a bounce, or you should have a bounce. Campbell's press conference was interesting to
it's
say.
certainly entertaining.
The least.
A lot better than Nick Sirianni's in Philly.
Well, that was two really interesting opening press conferences. But surely you would think, and it should happen, but this is the league, and sometimes owners do crazy things and they listen to the people closest to them who they shouldn't listen to. Hello, Texans. But the players were so unhappy under Patricia that you imagine that there will be a bit of a bounce from that, at least in terms of the mood in the dressing room. But if I was the Lions, I would take stock. I'd see what I have. I don't see the point particularly in going up this year, but look, this is what makes it interesting. You also would have to do a whole lot of work in a pretty short space of time to figure out who you wanted to take, because I think you really want that. That's the other thing that I will say, and I know we need to move on, but Josh Allen, the Bills identified Josh Allen and they went after Josh Allen. They pursued it. They brought in the OC. They went after him. What you need to do that. You need to actually put a plan in place and then execute the plan. And don't worry if you hit some roadblocks. But I think it would be a tough ask to put that plan into place for the Lions right now, whereas I think they still would have the capital, given what they've got, to do that over the course of 2021, moving into next season.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, real quick, that's what the Ravens did with Lamar, right? Like, they sold out on Lamar Jackson. They brought in the OC that would work well with him, right? They put in the personnel, like they gave him Andrews, and that's why the Ravens are in any way relevant. But yeah, I want to know before we move.
No, ask your question. This is the longest we've ever talked about the Lions. Let's keep it going.
Yeah. Well, I want to know. I'm gonna kind of go away from the Lions a little bit. So, like in London, right? You got Jaguars fans everywhere because like that's their market, right? They come over and play all the time, right? Who around you are you guys just like free agents? Like what? You know what I mean?
How do you become
like,
a Broncos fan?
That's right. Like what is the demographic of fans over there?
It's me. Well, you do have a lot of Jaguars fans in London, certainly, but I think across the UK and Ireland, it's pretty mixed. Ireland, I would say, tends to be a good few Patriots fans, given the links between Ireland and Boston. Also the Steelers, again, given the Rooney family and the kind of historic links, got a lot of Irish in and around Pittsburgh. Those are the big ones that you see, but all 32 have support. There are they started showing the NFL in Ireland really in the 80s, so you have a lot of 49ers fans. The Raiders, you see people wearing Raiders gear all the time now, whether they know what the Raiders gear is or whether
they just like the Pirates
logo
symbol.
tends to sell itself. But those would be the ones who stand out. Like when we do kind of watch parties and we go to the pub, the ones that you would see the most would be the Patriots, the Steelers, good few Packers fans, Chiefs fans growing, definitely. That's what being successful will do. Not a huge number of Broncos fans, I would have to say, in this part of the world, but
that's
some.
also true for the United States as well.
Not a lot of across the country, except for in Denver. I've actually and this is how I came across you, Colum. I've met a number of UK NFL podcasters, Ireland podcasters, and almost every single one has been a fan of a different team. So I'm actually yet to meet one that's a Jags fan. So there's another UK podcast he's a Colts fan and his co-host is a Cowboys fan, and it's just fascinating to see the vast differences in fandom there. So let's use that as a segue into the main topic for tonight. Like I said, I don't think we've ever talked about, may never talk about the Lions for that length of time again, but it is Super Bowl week. That's why we're having this pigskin party. Let's go ahead and preview the game. So a couple facts before we get started. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kansas City is currently favored by 3. There's a week left for lines to change, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of movement there. And the current over-under is 56.5. So I want to start with you, Will, because your insufferably beloved Brady is the quarterback of the Bucs and in his 10th Super Bowl, and kudos and yada, yada, yada. Fine. But how do you see this game playing out? What are some different possible scenarios you see it going in, and then ultimately making your pick?
I think, number one, a lot of this game depends on health, right? On both sides, but on Tampa's side, obviously, there are a couple people that need to get healthy. AB being one of them, Mr. Up here. But Winfield, Vita Vea feeling good. I think if we can assume full health, pretty much on both sides of the ball, I think it's back and forward. I think Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones are probably going to have to play a pretty big role in this game. But I think the country, like if you look at Vegas, like 80% of the money, bro, has come in on the Chiefs. Last I heard. And they got one massive, $2.5 million bet on the Buccaneers. But, nobody realistically thinks Tampa's going to win this game. You know what I mean? But I've seen a lot of interviews. Tampa's feeling good. Sue's is feeling really confident. So if they can come into this full strength, I mean, KC, dude, they should have lost to the Browns. So, they're beatable. It's just one of those things where who shows up to play, I think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a boring game by any means. I think this is going to be a slugfest, between these two teams. And I think the question here is just, can Tampa, I think the key here is Kelsey, really, for the KC's offense. If they can take him out of the game, however you can
which
do that,
it should be noted, no one has ever been able to do. So
again, yeah. So that's the key, right? Because Hill's gonna get his, right? He's gonna beat somebody on some deep post or some fly route, and but Hill is very. Not often does he just take over a game. You know what I mean? Unless you play the Bucs a few weeks ago, and he gets 5,000 yards in 4 minutes. So if he does that again, maybe. But I mean, I think that was probably an anomaly. They won't let that happen again. But I think that's the key to this game is Kelsey. And then, are the Bucs going to drop the ball? That's the other thing. I mean, like Godwin and Evans have just been plagued by drops. So I think having Brown back is crucial. I think Gronk, a lot of the people that you wouldn't think, like having Gronk block and then go out, having Fournette play a great game, all those things are going to be really important if Tampa stands a shot to win.
Do you think they can win? Are you ready to make your pick, or you want to hear our analysis first?
I mean, you know who I'm going to pick. I'm not going to bet on it because, that's not what I do. If I bet on this game, I'm putting a lot of money on Kansas City.
Emotional hedge.
However much my emotions are worth, that's how much I'm putting on Kansas City. So.
All right, so we'll bring it back to you. Let's each give our takes on the game, and then we'll come back and do picks, so you can digest before you make your irrational Brady pick. Colum, what are your thoughts on this game? What are some different scenarios you could see that could lead either team to victory?
It's a really fascinating matchup, I think, because obviously you have goat versus baby goat, or whatever way you want to put
That's
it.
Right.
Well,
it's inevitable. We'll deal with it.
What he is doing is ridiculous. And for me, the actual key to this game is the Chiefs line. Because the Chiefs O-line is beat up. It's really beat up. I think the centers is the only starter from week 1. So they've had to move things around. The fact that they have Patrick Mahomes is the only reason I think that they are favorites, given what they're having to deal with. When you lose Eric Fisher late in the championship game, when Mitchell Schwartz is already out, I mean, those two guys are all pro linemen. So those are huge losses, and you're facing up against JPP and Shaq Barrett. That would worry me as if I was a Chiefs fan, that would be my concern.
So if you have to get the ball out quick, where's it going to go?
Tight end, Travis Kelce. Or Hill. I mean, Hill's big play in the championship game was a little slant that he took for 80 yards. Doesn't have to be a deep ball. He's so quick.
Exactly. And they have Mahomes and they have Andy Reid. And I don't think Andy Reid gets the credit he deserves. Andy Reid is ridiculous. The Chiefs have 8 winning seasons in a row. What he did in turning that franchise around. And remember, Mahomes wasn't there all that time. A lot of that was done with Alex Smith. So he's the way he schemes, and he has learned and grown and developed as a coach. He's got much better at disguising what he wants to do. He used to be a bit greedy, and there were a couple of years ago when they lost to the Patriots in that championship game. Earlier that season, they had brought out a play against the Broncos where they were absolutely annihilating us already, but on a 2-point conversion, they threw to one of the O-line guys, and when they were against the Patriots, they could have really used that. So I think he's gotten much better at keeping his cards close to his chest. He's always been a brilliant offensive mind, an absolute brilliant offensive mind. The Bucs are great though as well. I mean, they have their wide receiver core is really good. The tight ends are there, and they're able to do enough when Brady needs them to do it. They've got a running back duo who are pretty solid, and I think the interesting thing is during the season, you'd say the Chiefs' probably biggest weakness outside of that, the injuries that they now have on the line, but the biggest weakness is probably the run defense. But if you were to have a weakness in a team, that's the weakness I think you want to have, because it's the most fixable one. And so I am really torn on it, because I look at Devin White and he is he is everything you want a linebacker to be in this league. It's like there are two of him on the field.
And he's peaking at the right time. He's playing his best football right now.
Oh, he absolutely is. But on the other side, you've got Honey Badger, who just seems to he's a magnet for the football, and he makes big plays. He doesn't have, say, the I suppose he's not as quick as White, but he knows just where to go. He's so good at reading the QB. And we had Jeff Reinbold on with us a few weeks back. He talked about what the Chiefs did. So when Spags came in there last year, what they used to do, they do a play called the Rat. And it's basically where they use Sorensen and Honey Badger. And it's the Rat is the person who's watching the QB, watching their eyes, seeing if they can make a pick. And initially they were using Sorensen in that role, and then they realized, no, Honey Badger is the guy
his
you want,
instincts are
because
amazing.
his instincts just... So that's I think will be interesting, right? Because Brady has... At every point this season where people have doubted him, he can't throw a deep ball. Well, then he went and he was throwing deep balls.
He can't him again.
He did throw 3 interceptions. Granted, they weren't all his fault.
He did. Which is the interesting piece, because I don't think they can make those mistakes against the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will punish you in a way that no other team takes advantage of it in that way. I think the other thing about the Chiefs is they're not going to go into this game, even though they are favorites. They'll believe in themselves, but I don't believe they'll go in cocky. I don't believe they'll think that it's there's a destiny to win it. I think the Packers suffered a little bit from that, this Lambeau mystique, and that Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were going to have difficulty in the cold. Like I talked about, like, are you joking me? Professional athletes are going to have trouble in the cold. Tom Brady, who played in Foxborough in Nor'easters, was going to have difficulty in the cold. I mean, that was one of the most ridiculous talking points I think I heard in the lead up to the game.
I enjoy how you said Foxborough. I like that. But I mean, hey, yeah. You know, I think there is an element of this being in the Bucs stadium. You know, that probably is going a little overlooked.
Although let's be clear, it's not like they're home fans coming to this game. I mean, you looked up tickets because you live in Orlando. How much are the tickets going for? Like 8,000 to 10,000? It's insane.
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about, like, you know, I mean, do we know yet? I mean, are they gonna like fire the cannons? I mean, are they gonna? I don't think so,
because they're not. They're the designated home team, but not because the game is in Tampa. They're just the NFC is the designated home team.
Yeah, but I just didn't know if they could like use the stadium.
I think that would be an unfair advantage to do that, right? To choose for the NFL. This is supposed to be. I mean, every year until this year, it's been in an impartial.
Point is, familiar facility.
Right.
Familiar facility, right? Like, I think if you look at who can afford $10,000 tickets, right? Like, honestly, it's going to be celebrities
and
anyway.
Frontline workers. They're
a lot,
bringing on frontline workers, which is great.
Yeah, not them.
What do you mean, not them?
Sure. But I mean, like,
gotta give credit to the frontline workers. It's not them.
It's rich dudes in Florida. You know what I mean? That can travel to, you know. So I don't know. You know, I just think that you are right, I think, in a lot of your points. I mean, Kansas City does not seem to suffer from, like, this destiny, overconfidence, arrogance.
The Aaron Rodgers
thing.
chip on his shoulder that I actually succumbed to, right, thinking he was just going to cruise his way to the Super Bowl. But, yeah. And I want to go ahead and give Colum credit because we talked about this before we started recording, but as the co-host of the Irish NFL show, you were the only one on your show, and including this show, because neither of us picked it either, that correctly pick the Bucs and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So you saw that. You were able to identify that, and kudos to you for being right. Let me give my thoughts on this game, and then we'll go around and make an actual pick here. So I think the specific edge and the difference maker is going to be, like you identified, Colum, the Chiefs' offensive line. The fact that Mitchell Schwartz has been out for weeks now. They just lost Eric Fisher. And that Bucs defensive line, coming off the game they had against the Packers O-line, where Barrett had 3 sacks, JPP had 2 sacks, but beyond that, they were just always he was he was under constant pressure. And yes, and Rodgers is mobile. No, he isn't like a stone pony. I mean, he can move around, but Mahomes is on a different level. So yes, it's not exactly the same. Obviously, Mahomes is younger. He just has this innate ability to escape pressure and make plays when he gets out of the pocket. But I have a feeling he's going to be running around a lot. So he's going to have to do that constantly. And if they actually do get to him and make some hits, I think that could be the key. Kansas City, from what I've seen, and yes, well, they almost lost to the Browns, but it's the Bills game that I'm paying more attention to. And the fact that Bills defense, which had really started to come on at the end of the year, the beginning of the year they were awful, but they started to come on, they could do nothing to stop that Chiefs offense. And both Kelsey and Hill each had over 100 yards in both of their playoff games this year. Against Buffalo, they had like 296 of Mahomes' 340 passing yards. So you don't even need a bevy of weapons. How do you cover both of them? How do you cover Hill with his speediness across the middle or his deep ball, running past the defense on deep balls versus Kelsey, who is just a matchup nightmare? Devin White is going to have to play the game of his life if he's going to be covering him over the middle of the field. It's just nearly impossible to stop both of them. And the fact that you have the best quarterback in the NFL right now in Mahomes, it's very hard. I do think it'll be entertaining. I completely agree there. I think the Bucs, there are paths to victory, specifically if they can get to Mahomes repeatedly, not allow him to get out of the pocket and get to him before he's able to scramble and make plays. That's the X factor. If they can do that consistently.
I think too that one of the things to think about is the play calling, right? The chance taking. You know what I mean? Like, the Bucs are going to have to roll the dice.
Well, the good news is both of these coaches, right? And that could lead to an entertaining game. Neither Bruce Arians nor Andy Reid are shy of doing aggressive play calling, and that makes me even more excited for this game.
Like, if you're punting from, the opponent's 40 or 45, you're probably going to lose if you're the Bucs. You know what I mean? Like,
we saw that with McDermott. We saw that with LaFleur. We're not going to see that. I guaranteed we're not going to see that kind of conservative play calling from either of these coaches. It's not in their DNA, and we haven't even seen that recently. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to play to win. They're not going to play not to lose, and that's going to make this game even more exciting.
So I'm just going to reiterate what I just said. My prediction was, if Brady vanquishes Breeze and Rodgers en route to a Super Bowl over the Chiefs and Mahomes, I will be insufferable. And I just want you to know, we are 2 out of 3. Don't let it happen, NFL.
Don't let it happen for the sake of my show, because I also said that if that happened, I would be looking for a new co-host, because I will not be able to deal with you throughout an entire offseason, having weekly shows of this podcast, and the next season and going forward. So, Colum, if you're looking for a second NFL show to do, if the Bucs win, I might be talking to you. So let's go ahead and go around and make picks. I think we've all been very, very sharp in the analysis and all make great points. So we'll start with you, and then we'll go around. Are you going to officially pick your lover Brady to win this game?
No, I think Casey covers.
Oh, okay. So you think they'll win and they cover? Okay, it's on the record. Colum, what do you think?
I have gone back and forth on this over the course of the week, because I see more than one way that the Bucs can win it. And Tom Brady wants to make history. He wants to be the guy who not only wins it
again
in his home
and again
and again, yeah. But that he's constantly motivated by it's the next the next one. What's your remember that question when somebody asked him what's your favorite Super Bowl, and he said the next one, and that's the type of guy he is. So I have no doubt he will be looking to do it. He wants to also move to 7 rings, which would take him past Michael Jordan's 6 championships.
So now we're going cross sports. So, interesting. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because he becomes absolutely transcendent then.
He already is.
He's transcendent in the NFL, but he's right. If I had to, and I'm an NFL fan, clearly, but if I had to rate greatest athletes ever, I would put Jordan ahead of Brady. Whether it's fair or not, yeah. But Brady gets a 7th ring. Might have to rethink
and that changes. So,
I mean, here's the question: do athletes have to run? right? Like there's the like are we talking about athletes or like people who play sports, right? Because like
You're talking about, like,
the
track
World
and
Series
field?
of Poker is on ESPN, right? Like, are they athletes?
Now we're going off the tracks,
Yeah.
which we're known to do here.
So to me, there are and they have weapons and they have a great coaching staff, and I've no doubt they will come up with plays that will cause the Chiefs trouble. On the other side, like you can look at games, and there are plenty of games this season that the Chiefs shouldn't have won, but they did because they find a way, and that is what the best teams do. And shutting down Kelsey has changed the way that the tight end position is viewed, in the way that Ditka did, in the way that Gronk did. He has made it like an extra wide receiver. It is ridiculous what he's been able to do. To have him in the conversation with those two already at this stage of his career, and he's got more to come. And I've seen interviews with him, and he has that kind of same just utter drive to get better and to improve, and similar to Brady. And to me, when you look at, and Brian, you mentioned about the coaches, Andy Reid becomes like he carries his cojones in a wheelbarrow when it comes to the playoffs. He goes for it, like that 4th and half an inch, and he throws the ball. He consistently goes for it. I do think another reason why it will be so fascinating right now, I think that between them, because it's not just Reed, it's Reed, Bieniemy, Spangs, and David Tube as the special teams. I just think them combined with Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and we haven't talked about Hardman. Like they have so many weapons that they can come at you. Hardman had the muff punt, but then he's still a danger. And in a Super Bowl, if they were down and they needed to, could they put Hill as a kick returner? Yes, they could, and suddenly you have another option. I just think the Chiefs have just too much. I think this should be one for the ages, but I think right now the Chiefs will edge an absolute thriller.
I think here's the thing, right? Could we have picked two other teams to go into this game this hyped? Like, given this season and all of what it could be, right? We're going into a Super Bowl in Tampa, first ever home game Super Bowl. Brady versus Mahomes, which is always, like, even when that's the championship game, like, that's the game people care about. You know what I mean? Like, you want to see that. Like, you want to see the new age versus the old hat. You know what I mean? And you got, coming down to it, talking about what you just said, Colum, all the weapons, I don't think Tampa has the secondary to get this done. So, I mean, honestly, that's it. But just, you couldn't pick an NFC and an AFC matchup that's better than what we're about to see.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I was excited to see Rodgers, and it would have had a similar feel, but not the same. Because Rodgers is amazing, but he's won one Super Bowl. He's 1-4 in NFC Championship games. As talented as he is physically, Brady's on another level with his accomplishment. I mean, come on, 10th Super Bowl, freaking 10. Most quarterbacks are glad to get to one.
You can't play Madden. You can't play Madden on all Madden in 21 seasons and make the 10 Super Bowls.
It's almost 20% of every Super Bowl played.
We got to give credit where credit is due.
Brady has a better chance of making the Super Bowl than Aaron Rodgers does of completing a pass. I'll just throw that out there.
Explain that stat. I know you put it on Twitter, but
championship game. It was like I forget the number. It was like 14 of 20 seasons or something. It was like 70% chance to make the championship game, and Rodgers' career completion percentage was like 65%.
That's something else. Yeah, so I completely agree with you guys. I don't think we could have asked for a better matchup, and I hope everybody was excited about the Rams-Patriots a few years ago because of how well that McVay offense had been, and Goff was we didn't know any better at the time. Oh, Goff is the next big thing. And of course, that game was a dud. So sincerely hope this isn't the case, but this is not. Mahomes is on a whole nother level. Watching these playmakers, watching the excitement of that offense when they're clicking. And like you said, Colum, they have found so many different ways to win. When teams have dropped back and to deep zone, they'll just pick you apart. They have no problem doing 15-play drives for 8 minutes. Or like they did against the Bucs, just throw it deep to Tyreek Hill for 3 touchdowns in 1 quarter. It's like they will find different ways to kill you.
You know what? The other story about this is like, who were the problems on the Steelers? They're both in the Super Bowl. Where are the Steelers? You know, how do you feel if you're Ben, bro? You bitch about AB and you bitch about Lev Bell, or he didn't really bitch about Lev Bell, but you know that whole story. They're on either side of the Super Bowl. Like, how mad are like Steelers fans about this game?
That's a whole other intrigue to follow. Is Big Ben coming back? Yeah, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah.
Shady McCoy's gonna get carried. He's still around, right? He's still alive.
He's alive, and he's on the Bucs. I don't know if he's active. He was inactive last year. He played for the Chiefs last year, and he was inactive in the Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting. That'll be an interesting side story if he's playing for the Bucs this year and also inactive. But
I do think Brady probably gets a little too much credit for this year. But like, look at what it's done for Rojo. Like Rojo was garbage. But like this year, now that it's not all about them having to like try to piece together some sort of offense, you know, and people are, for better or worse, focused on what Brady can do with the receivers, like it's opening up a lot, you know. And Ronald Jones,
I'm going to throw one compliment that actually is in contrast to what you said to Brady, which is rare. And I do give him the credit for this. He was the one big difference between last year's 7-9 Jameis Winston-led team to this year's Super Bowl contender is Brady. And it's not just his physical talent; it's the leadership, the acumen, his understanding. Arians was quoted as saying that he's getting Tom's input more on the offense. Hey, what plays do you think we should do? What do you know? So he is integral in so many different ways. So I'm going to go ahead and make my pick, and then we'll all give kind of closing thoughts here. So I have been saying since we started this podcast, we made picks on every single game every week, and I have said I will not pick against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs as long as Mahomes is healthy and starting, and I'm going to keep with my word. I can't pick against Mahomes. And I do think it's going to be entertaining. I do think there are going to be moments where people are like, oh, Tampa Bay has a shot at this, and they might. And the pass rush is the difference. But at the end of the day, the biggest weakness is that Tampa Bay secondary. And you're facing the best tight end in the league, who is a transcendent talent, like Colum mentioned, the best quarterback in the league, certainly the best threat. You can debate whether Hill is the best wide receiver, but he's the best single threat in the NFL. You've got those things going against the weak Tampa Bay secondary, unless they just are bombarding Mahomes with QB hits and pressures and sacks. I just don't see them slowing him down. And you mentioned one thing earlier. I'll mention one more thing, then I'll turn it over to you. Colum mentioned that you can't afford mistakes against this Chiefs team. One bad drive where you don't get it done could be the difference, because you can't stop this Chiefs offense. You have to just hope to slow them down. So you have to be perfect. And if there's any quarterback that's capable of that, yes, I'll give it to Brady. But you can't have drops by Evans. You can't have drops by Godwin. You can't have Fournette and Rojo, who have been shown to disappear from games at a time. You can't have that. You can't have the secondary laxing and letting up big plays. You have to be perfect across the board. So I'm going to officially pick the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm also going to pick them to cover the 3-point spread.
I just need Sue to step on Mahomes' toe, over and over again. Just sit on it, just jump up and down on his toe.
I will say that first of all, that's evil. Shame on you. Second of all, if there's any way I would pick the Bucs, the one thing is something unforeseen, like an injury. So if Hill gets injured, if Kelsey gets injured, if Mahomes gets injured, we can't predict that. Mm-hmm. But yes, if Ndamukong Suh decides that he wants to,
hopefully Mahomes eats a lot of tacos in Tampa, or eats a lot of Cuban sandwiches in Tampa the night before, and has to take a poop the entire second half. He can't play. I was going to say,
but all he did was go to the locker room, do his business, and come out and lead the Ravens to victory.
Tom Brady needs to use some of his money and send every hooker in Tampa to Kelsey, who's single, by the way, and just drain all of the energy out of his body the night before. He just needs to take a nap during the game.
One thing that we didn't discuss, the other thing that, and we talked about the Bucs pass rush, the pressure Jones brings from inside for the Chiefs. that is a game changer. And
second only to Aaron
like,
Donald from the inside, I think.
Yeah. Wirfs has been brilliant for the Tampa Bay offensive line. Absolutely incredible. People laughed when they jumped up one, but he has been exceptional. But like interior pressure changes things. It absolutely does. And if you can, the only way you get Brady off his game is interior pressure.
And he also crumples immediately. Like, if he sees somebody in his face,
he's
like,
not
nope,
doing Mahomes, where Mahomes is like instantly wants to find a play.
Like Brady does not want to get broken. He knows he's old.
I get it.
I would crumble if I saw Chris Jones coming after me.
But which I get. The other thing I will say on Brady, in fairness, is it's like Peyton at the Broncos in that last season. Ryan Jensen has said, right, when Brady came in, he used to spend 30-40 minutes just on the snap, right, every day with Ryan Jensen.
Looks like he needs to do it for about twice that.
Well,
Ryan Jensen's good for some errant snaps, bro.
It seems to have been worked all right for them so far. I mean, but again, it's Brady looking at what he needed to do. Jensen said no other QB that he has played with did that. Brady said, "This is what I want when I'm under center. This is what I want when I'm in shotgun. This is what I want in this situation." His attention to detail is ridiculous.
Speaking about that, did you see that Ryan Jensen complained about, not complained, but made a joke that when just exactly what you're talking about, Brady said that Jensen's butt was too sweaty. So he showed him how to adjust his towel so that he didn't get a soggy taint during the game. You didn't hear about this?
I didn't hear that.
We have officially heard the word soggy taint on the Pigskin Party Podcast.
He posted about it, like, as soon as Brady got there, Jensen was like, "I've never had anybody, like, tell me how to tuck a towel in my pants, or, like, I don't get butt sweat on the football." Like, or his hands.
That's the attention to detail that Brady brings.
It's funny, but it is.
Brady cares about your taint if you are his center.
That's the quote for this week. Brady cares about more taint if you're his center. So to wrap it up, Colum and I think that the biggest difference on both sides of the ball is going to be the pressure, and Will thinks that Tom Brady should send a prostitute to Travis Kelce and try to train him the night before.
Minnie.
Or have Sue sit on his face.
All
this is the analysis you get from...
It should be a storm the Capitol. Kelsey's hotel room should be the Capitol, and all of the MAGA supporters should be all of the prostitutes in the state.
There's our politics for this week, bringing in a MAGA quote. So I am going to go ahead and wrap it up. But for those of you listening, we are actually going to drop an additional NFL bonus episode, and I'm going to be having both Colum and Will, always Will, can't get rid of Will, back for that. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Please, as always, subscribe wherever you hear your podcast, but we're also on YouTube. Check us out there. You can find us on Twitter at the official PP Pod. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, and now we have a Discord community. So the link will be in the episode description. We've actually already had a number of people join, and we've had some great discussions over there. So if you're interested in joining the PPP Discord community, just check the description in the episode title, and you will have a link there. So email us as well, pigskinsandpolitics@gmail.com. Stick around for the bonus NFL episode, and enjoy the game.